All right, so we are live. I'm super excited talking today about the GE STEM for Changemaking Challenge. And excuse me, excuse me. This live broadcast will also air as our podcast episode next week because I know I have two very distinct audiences, those who tune in to view either on YouTube or Facebook, and those who are podcast listeners, typically are my commuters, even though they're still listening, not commuting as much, but wanted to get this information out sooner rather than later because of the timeliness of this topic. So I have Shafat Khan, who's here from Ashoka. Welcome, Shafat.
Hello, how's it going?
It's
Pleasure to
going
be here. It's a gloomy day in Washington, D.C., so I hope everyone, if you're around here, then you're driving safe or not driving, to be honest. But
great.
yeah, pleasure to be here and excited to get going.
Awesome. Awesome. So, Shafat, if we could just start off, if you can just tell us about a little bit about who you are, your background, and about Ashoka.
Yeah, so again, like Pam mentioned, my name is Shafat Khan. I work at Ashoka, where we're focusing on making sure that everyone in the world gets the ability and the conditions around them to be a change maker. And what that truly means is that if you're a young person or you're someone older and you see a problem around you, you give yourself the permission to create change and to create change in a way that benefits yourself, your community, and hopefully the entire world. I specifically work on our youth initiative at Ashoka, focusing on how can we make sure that young people have sort of a different definition of success, right? I don't know about you, Pim, but how I grew up was in Bangladesh. So it's a country in South Asia or Southeast Asia, depending on who you ask. But really, growing up for me in the education system was all about repetition and memorization. And we had certain rules, such as how our hair should be and stuff like that, which to me never made sense as to why that mattered for my educational background and really how that was preparing me for the world. I get that you need some sort of a good haircut, so I'll let that go by, but really it's the repetition and the memorization that is is bothering me still to this day. I've worked really hard to get here to into the United States from Bangladesh. I went to the University of Virginia, uh, graduating in a humanities background. So I actually studied South Asian cultures and languages. And what that did for me was gave me a purpose for my education. And truly, that's our goal, not just for education, but really how do we give purpose to every single person out there in order for them to believe in themselves and create change. So, yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We love Ashoka in our household. Just for the viewer and the listener by podcast, my daughter is an Ashoka Young Change Maker, and I think it's been 3 years now. But she's part of the first cohort of Young Changemakers. Someone nominated her. All we know is she got an email and she was nominated for the work that she does, that she started when she was 15-ish in Nairobi, Kenya, and has continued. And this is how powerful your organization is, and the initiative. I mean, it really helped to influence her next step. I mean, she's graduating high school class of 2020 and being a part of Ashoka and having the opportunities that you guys have
Hmm.
given her. I mean, she's got some incredible, which is just the beginning, but the exposure, the networking really helped to influence what her next steps are going to be in terms of her major and where she strategically chose to go to school. I mean, it just
Yeah.
influenced all of it. So I think it's important because a lot of times parents think, oh, they're young, they don't know. No, they're not distracted, and it's not filtered through so many experiences that, when they come up with these ideas, no matter how crazy they may seem, let them begin to make change right where they are, and just really support them. So thank you. I love Ashoka. Love,
Of
love, love.
course. And just to comment on that piece, I think working with Sophia, who is Pam's daughter, it's been a pleasure to witness how the whole narrative and the movement we're building really is centered around our Ashoka Young Changemakers. And
Mm,
the reason being is because, I mean, for me, it's really important that as an organization, we work not only for young people, but rather with young
mm,
people as well. The old way of thinking that you have a school district board or some sort of a board where you need a young voice and a young perspective, so you just bring someone on as a representative and put them to the corner where there's 90 adults making a decision and one young voice just checking a box. And I think that fundamentally needs to shift around uh, mindsets, but more importantly, ecosystems, right? You need to figure out a way where if your constituency is young people, then you need to talk to young people. And I think that
yeah.
narrative is what we're truly trying to build. And Sophia's been so instrumental to that, simply because of her, obviously, her work for her own organization, but also being such an important leader for our movement. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. And she's a great friend now, too.
Awesome. I'm going to pause you for a second. I'm going to switch Wi-Fi connection. This is really good. So I'm going to switch to Wi-Fi connection. This is really good. So I'm going to switch to Wi-Fi connection.
There you go. I think you're back.
Yep. you know,
Amazing.
I want to say this, and what you shared was great. And it was funny. I was watching, you were still there, which is great. I
Yeah.
talked to a good friend of mine a few days ago, and we were, I listened to his podcast and watch his live streams. And he was just talking about how people really like to see the back end of the way things happen. Because with
Yeah.
podcasting, it's cleaned up. I have an editor who
Right.
cleans it all up, and it's produced, and it's boom.
Hmm.
But the live is live. So,
Yeah.
this is kind of the real, the back end. And this is
Yep.
life. Life is messy, so I call it the messy middle, which is really good. So thank you
That's
for
awesome.
pausing, but I'm on a much better connection here. And we've had to figure it out. And oh my, six people in the house and all six on Wi-Fi at the same time. It's
Wow.
been interesting. So yeah, but
Yeah.
but thank you. You were just sharing about not just having young people sit at the table, but really lead initiatives, being front runners. And I think
Hmm.
that's so important, especially, in the midst of a crisis like we're facing right now, this pandemic. What new creative solutions and ideas do young people have that we're just not hearing about because maybe they don't have that platform or they feel like they can't talk about it? And
Hmm.
so I think what you're doing, what Ashoka does, is vital. I mean, you're like the one of the largest NGOs, and then your youth initiative is so strong, and the model is it's working. It's a great model. So
I'm
thank
glad. Thank
yes.
you. Of course.
So if we could jump in, so thank you, Shafat, for sharing about Ashoka, your young change makers. Let's talk about why we're here today, and that's the
Hmm.
GE STEM um, for Change Making Challenge. If we can talk about that.
Yeah. So General Motors is one of our partners, and they're So amazing in terms of what a partner embodies, and really what our partnership is trying to do is support young people who have solutions to some of our biggest environmental challenges around the world. The challenge is focused on supporting people who are based in the United States and are from age 14 to 18. And uh, what we have noticed, I think, in the past 3 to 4 weeks is really, is this a good time to launch a challenge? That was the main question, right? It comes up in every conversation, but really, we're so excited to be able to launch this because a lot of our conversations, we have a lot of young people, as you know, in our network, and most of the conversations, my question to them was, hey, how's your organization doing? And how is everything going? And there seems to be a pattern of young people saying, "Oh, my corporate donor just fell through," or my donations, where the families it came from, they're not donating anymore. So we're excited to be able to launch this challenge to make sure that we're supporting people who have already been working for around at least 3 months to uh, find solutions to for environmental issues with a STEM solution. So what that basically means is you're using what you've learned in your classrooms, or to be honest, outside of your classroom as well, with regards to STEM, and how can you use that knowledge to solve, I mean, climate change and the environment are two really big topics that we're talking about. It's funny because one of our other Ashoka Young Changemakers, Katie Eder, just launched a digital climate strike.
Hmm.
And that's just an example. And to be honest, there's a lot of young people who are still moving their projects forward, regardless of this pandemic and regardless of where they're located. They could be at home. They could very well be in the basement of their home, anywhere, to be honest. And Sophia is such a great example of that as well, where she's able to create change sitting in Delaware, in Kenya. And I
Hmm.
think that is what we're looking for, are change makers who are, have solutions that are building a community, impacting their community as well, and more importantly, finding some solutions to a lot of work that we as a being and as a species need to look at when it comes to the environment.
Yes, nice. That's good. That's really good. So, as we talk more about this challenge for students, is this individuals? Is it teams? Do school projects count if it fits the rest of the eligibility criteria? Can you talk about kind of what it looks like? Who can apply? So we know the
Yeah.
age is 14 to 18,
Hmm.
but is that a 14 18 individual or
Yeah.
share?
So teams are encouraged, to be honest. We're looking for people that can get other people to buy into their project. And what better way to prove that you have a team that's working with you, right? So where the funding that we're providing for now is $1,000 in seed funding, and that goes to the team or the change maker that applied through their project. So what right now our offering is that, and honestly, the world is changing so fast every day that we don't know whether this is going to happen. But selected change makers, so one representative from each team will get to fly for an all expense paid trip to General Motors' headquarters
Oh, nice.
in Detroit, Michigan, for a 2 day immersive experience on how can we improve what you're doing? How can we take your project, whether it's a school club project or whether it's a registered 501c3, that doesn't matter for the challenge. It's really based on impact rather than your legal status. And how can we take that to the next level? And what is that next level? And what does systemic change look like for your project? If you're working at a community level, can you go farther? Can you go national? Can you go global? So uh, those 2 days are where we work with the change makers very closely. But and 25 change makers get to go in total. And again, it depends on the coronavirus and what how that plays out. So we don't
Yeah.
really know. Our vision was to do that. It is still is to do that, but might be postponed. We might have to find a different solution. But to answer your question, Pam, the criteria, if you are part of a club, if you're part of a school project that you've been working on with your peers, that counts. You're able to apply as long as your solution is tied to an environmental issue, as well as has some sort of a STEM relationship to it.
Nice. Now, is this an annual challenge?
This is our second annual. Yeah. So
Okay.
we did a similar challenge with General Motors last year. We also run challenges with a couple of our other partners as well. But yes, hopefully we can run it again next year as well.
Nice. That's good. That's good to know. So, talk a little bit about last year's winners. What were some of the people who won in the past? What were some of their STEM projects,
Yeah.
environmental projects?
So, I mean, one off the top of my head, it's she's her name is Laya. She was one of our winners from our challenge last year, and what her solution is doing is helping detect flooding in communities so that people are not endangered, right? And you think of uh, countries such as Bangladesh, very close to my heart. I lived there for 19 years. We have a lot of flooding issues, and we have a lot of issues pertaining to people being out there when there's going to be a flood, right? So Laya was able to, with her team, was able to work on a technology that's able to be preventative rather than a
Uh-huh.
reactive method. And I think to Laya's point, it's such a good example of how if you just let a young person follow their curiosity and really drive a solution that they believe in personally, regardless of whether it's technical or whether you're going out in the streets and kind of being a climate activist, your solution should have impact metrics, right? So I think that's the kind of project that we are excited to support. Laya is obviously one example. There were other winners as well, but the point being is how are you identifying an issue firstly? So within your own community, what was your personal affiliation with it? For Laya, it was simply that she saw people in her community dying, and for her to be a change maker, she thought, well, I need to do something about it. And she worked with her school, she worked with her team. I think that really is a great example of the kind of people that we're excited to support.
It's awesome. Such an impressive young lady. Yo.
Yeah,
Such an
it's
impressive young lady. Oh my goodness.
yeah, and
How old is
one
she? Or was she when she applied?
she was a sophomore in high school.
Okay, so about 15,
Yeah,
16-ish.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, my
Yeah.
the international
No,
student
that's
in me
okay. I mean, that
forgets
kind of,
sophomore.
yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's okay.
But
And I think that's important too, because a lot of times, young people think they can't do anything, but it's about seeing something and responding and creating a solution,
right,
to
and
solve
one
the
of the
problem and give it a
things,
try. It's about
yeah,
trying.
one of the things, Pam, that you just hit on is the self permission piece, right? It's really how is a
Mhm.
young person uh, being able to believe in themselves to go after that solution, right? And to do that, honestly, we need a lot of people, or one of my colleagues says this, which I resonate with personally, but I think everyone should, is that it truly takes a village to raise a change maker. Um, as if I'm sure you're aware of
I
this,
agree.
given
I
yeah,
I totally
given
agree. I
and
agree.
I think if we're able to, as a community, as a society, as a species, if we agree that young people are and should be more valued than they are when it comes to their voice, when it comes to their opinion, but more importantly, when it comes to their decisions, regardless of whether it succeeds or fails, we need to come together to look at ourselves and think about the systems that we're basically letting these young people growing up in, right? So if you think of the education system, like I mentioned, repetitiveness and memorization, that still exists to this day. One of our challenges that we run with another partner of ours, T-Mobile, we had to really convince some changemakers principals in order for them to come to our week-long event, to convince them in a manner that says, hey, this week will be more important to this student than maybe a week in class. And so there's two ways you can look at it. One way is, wait, why would the principal not just be excited and let them go? The other way to look at it is, why is this challenge not part of how they get credit?
Mm,
So there's kind
yeah.
of two lenses to this, and it's a lot of work that we're excited to be involved in when it comes to this space. But that's the kind of mindset that we need to shift for ourselves, for our peers, for our children, to be able to believe in themselves, regardless of what solution. And that, I think, is the epitome of what this challenge is really about. Is the climate movement is led by young people,
Hmm.
regardless of who you are, what your demographic is. You have to agree with that, because, and it's not led by Greta. Greta is an
Yeah.
instrument to this. Greta Thunberg is an amazing change maker, and she is one of the many leaders of the climate movement. And the many leaders that I speak of are all youth and young people. So I think once we realize that as adults, we need to support these young people to live in a world that they want to live in. I think that's what this challenge is all about. Is we're just supporting people to, and not. I think this. I had a realization about 2 weeks ago where I kept saying we empower young people, but to be honest, we don't. Who are we to give young people power? They already have their power. We're just enabling the
Yeah.
conditions around them, and this challenge is really one of those conditions.
Yeah. I would say, as a mom of a change maker and an Ashoka young change maker, I feel like what you all did was help scale and help
Mm-hmm.
literally. I just feel like the support that Ashoka has given my daughter Sophia has just been incredible. I mean, this past December, she, spoke at your conference in Nairobi, Kenya. Like, who does that in the midst of wrapping up her college application and a few
Mm-hmm.
scholarship applications? I just remember thinking, she's like, I got to finish my speech and this, and I'm thinking, okay. So
And
you're
she
right. I
crushed
mean,
it,
it's just
crushed
she was
it. Yeah.
already she. Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
and just so I think it's so important. And I agree. It would be nice if schools would come alongside and say, let's build some of this, because this is what some forward thinking universities and colleges are doing in terms of learning communities and how they structure their curriculum and their
Mm-hmm.
experiences in different majors. And it just makes sense. But what I love about this is you're going to the student, to the individual, and saying, hey, if you're doing this, apply. We want to hear about it. You may win, which would be awesome. And like I can say, as a mom of an Ashoka change maker, it is phenomenal.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
awesome.
literally, I can't say enough great things about it. So I love the fact that you're going right to the individual, or to the student,
Mm-hmm.
to say, hey, what are you doing? What have you done? And apply to this challenge. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're really, what we're seeing is that so many young people, just like, with Sophia's experience, for example, with the speaking arrangement, the fact that she has to worry about whether to focus on her speech or her college application, which is really important. I think that's really, really important. For me, I just graduated college about a couple years ago, so I really understand the importance of it. But we have to give them space to be able to do the things that they want to do. And support them in that regards as well. And that sometimes it's financial, which is what we're excited to do as well. But really, a lot of the times, it's just saying, "You got this.
Yeah.
You like I don't need to step in." I think we have that urge of over supporting of and I talk to a lot of parents as well, right? That's part of our core work is how do we work with parents in this regards. And a lot of parents, which is and I'm curious what's your take on this as well. It hurts to see your child fail, right?
Yeah.
It
Well,
really
I'm a little different
really
though.
yeah, well, I mean that's great, and
Yeah.
I'm positive that you are, which is why Sophia is not afraid. But I think
Yeah.
that's the piece that is really tough. And when we talk about mindset shift, we have to be aware of that. Is it's not we can as a Shoka, we can do all we want to promote young change making. We can promote young people when it comes to leadership, but at the end of the day, we have to take emotions into context as well. What is the barrier for either a parent or a teacher or a principal to not let that young person succeed or fail? And I think
Right.
um, it's just hard to see the people that you care about fail, but I think that is
Yeah.
part of a process through which you're able to believe in yourself and grow your experience more.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. That was good. Yes, this was good. So, thank you, Shafat. You shared so much great stuff. Um, I wanted to, because you shared a lot, you shared about the one young lady who was a past winner. Can you tell us more about specifically what you're looking for? What would make a student's project or group of students a project stand out in your
Yeah,
mind?
yeah, for sure. So really, what our criteria is looking for are change makers who,
I think I may have
firstly,
gone out. So, what would make a project stand out in your mind?
hmm can you hear me again? Perfect. Okay, sweet. So one of the things that I think we're inherently looking for is that change maker quality, right? Have you gone out and talked to people? Have you gone out and actually empathized with the issue itself? So there are two ways. Some people face this kind of problem personally, and then decide to do something about it because they want to find a solution for themselves. But then there's the other component of a lot of young people tend to see issues in their community, which might not necessarily affect them personally, but still affects their community. So, um, have they gone out and talked to those people who are going through this problem? So that's one. The second is there a solution working? What is the traction? What is the kind of impact metrics that they're using? Is it so that the solution has changed someone's one person's life? That's great, and that one person can trickle out to other people. Excuse me. Has that solution gone out and kind of changed their community and policy within their community? That could be a really interesting way of looking at it. The other piece is the movement building, right? So, have you built some sort of traction around people caring for your project? That could mean in multiple different ways, and that really is the creativity component of the application because we can't be prescriptive about our criterias. It's rather an open space for people to come in and apply with their own solutions. And what we say by movement building is how have you changed conversation around your community, right? So has that been that a lot of young people are inspired by your work and they want to go and do similar things? Has that been that the school that you're part of really cares and is investing in your project? Has that been that your club's kind of main goal has shifted to what your solution is? And when I say you, it's really you and your team, if that's the case. And then lastly, really, how are you using STEM as solution, right? So, what is are you kind of working in your school lab? Are you going out there and talking to technology experts to really take it to the next level? Are you creating your own technology, like I mentioned with Laya? Um, so there's a lot of aspects, but the reality of the situation when it comes to the core of the challenge is the change maker quality, right? What have you like? How have you kind of got up and stepped up to create the solution? And I think what we're really focusing on is whether you can show that you've actively been working on this for at least 3 months. I think that's really crucial to us because
Mhm.
this challenge isn't really an open call for ideas. It's rather a support system for ongoing projects.
Yeah, and it's really what I see it as kind of up leveling what you're already doing.
Right.
Again, kind of where Sophia was in her journey when
Hmm.
she became a change maker, she was already doing something. And then to have kind of that, your engine,
Yeah.
it was just phenomenal. So
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
to be honest, Ashoka, our roots come from around 40 years ago when our founder Bill Drayton simply asked a question to the world: is there are people out there who are driving social change and creating positive change for their communities and their countries? What do we call them? What is the common identity and what is the common language that they use? And that's where the birth of social entrepreneurship came from, right? And he's credited to coin the term social entrepreneur. And what that really was, and it still is to some degree now, is when you have a really powerful idea to create change matched with the skill set of a really good entrepreneur, that is what creates systemic change and policy shifts within the
Mhm.
countries and the communities that they work in. And for us, our positioning in this space was not that we want to kind of be an idea platform for social entrepreneurs. Our fellowship, the Ashoka Fellowship, has been around for 40 years. We have over 4,000 fellows across the world. And I want to say about 55% of them switched national policy based on their solution within their countries. The driving part for us and our solution was that we just supported them, uh, given our ability to. And it's funny when you work with entrepreneurs, and you work with that many entrepreneurs, and now over the past couple of years, we've launched our Shoki Changemaker program. You really have a front row ticket to the future
Mhm.
because you're looking at how people are driving solutions for the future. And that is what we're excited to do, even with this challenge, is be able to see how young people are finding solutions and then come in with our own expertise of the field and expedite the process of creating change.
This is great. So for the panel of judges, is it a combination of GE people and Ashoka people? Is it all GE? Does GE
GM,
just
yeah.
fund it?
So,
I mean GM, I'm sorry, GM.
no worries.
Do they
Yeah. So it really is a combination where Ashoka comes in with the more, I guess, systemic change as well as social entrepreneurship background, and General Motors comes in with their sustainability work. General Motors is one of the leaders. Even today, I mean, they're doing so much, but they're thinking about sustainability in a much different way. Um, and I think we're excited to be able to uh, create a panel of judges that are a mix of both. So our reviewers are a mix of both General Motors staff members as well as Ashoka team members. So yeah, so I think it's a
Okay.
best of both worlds. Yeah.
And what's the Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, great. And what's the timeline? So once a project is submitted, it's eligible, they move through the next steps. What's the notification? Is it
Yeah.
weeks? Is it
So
a month out? What does that look like?
right. So May 14th is our deadline for the challenge application. Really, so we had an early entry deadline as well on the 15th of April, and we had a lot of submissions in the sense that the submitting early meant that you would get individualized and customized feedback for your application, which you can then edit to have a final submission. Uh, a lot of change makers found that really helpful and useful, so that was great. And our final deadline is on the 14th, after which we will take some time to review all the applications, which will take a little bit of time. We don't have a set date for the release of the winners, but it should be around 2 to 3 weeks. So it shouldn't be that long of a turnaround. And then really it depends on the state of the world on whether we can convene in Detroit to work with the change makers. And if we can't, we're right now currently thinking of how can we adapt and create new solutions as well. Yes, we're back. That's
Yes.
amazing. People, your audience will truly know how much work it
You were still being
takes.
recorded. You're
That's amazing.
to pull one of these off, right?
Yes. Um,
Yeah. So
cool.
let's share. I definitely want to. Oh, go ahead. You were actually still you were still being captured. Your your
Great.
your Wi-Fi is great wherever you are in DC. So yes, everything you were saying, I can still see because I'm watching like here, and I'm like, good, he's still speaking. So
That's amazing.
so if we could talk about people, and I will include this link in the show notes as well as the link. Oh, I think I froze again, and as well as drop the link.
Hmm.
So we could talk about where I'm going to include like in the show notes as well as in the recording for people to go ahead, for teens, young folks to go ahead and sign up. But if you can just kind of that link, I have it here. It's kind of a
Yeah.
long one, so I will definitely share it
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. So that the link that you shared, that's our challenge platform. So for Changemaker to be able to submit their application, they should go to this link, which hopefully they'll be able to access. And then once you go in the link, the process is very
There we
simple.
go.
You
I
go,
think I can hear you. Can you hear me now, Shafat?
yes, I can.
Okay. Okay.
Perfect.
Hmm.
But yeah, so if you go to the link, you'll be able to see other ideas as well. So all of our applications are live and online. Uh, to apply, basically, you have to go through a series of questions that will help us judge on whether you're a good fit for the criteria, but really for the seed funding that we're providing. And once you go through the series of questions and answer them, you'll be able to edit them until the deadline of the application, which is May 14th. I would encourage you to apply or even start your application right now. And then, yeah, that's simply it. It's a straightforward application in this essence of change making. And really, what we're looking for is the stuff that we were talking about before. The final thing that I'll say is there's a 1 minute video that you need to submit for the application itself. A lot of change makers, I think, think about the video as, oh, does it need to be well produced or does it need to be really kind of animated and stuff like that? No, the answer is no. It's really 1 minute to share your story and it's 1 minute for you to share why are you stepping up today as a change maker, and why does the solution that you're basically implementing, how is that solving the issue, and why do you care? I think there's the simple question, and I think one of the things that we've seen really become successful is the selfie video. So you just take a selfie, or not take a selfie, but you put your phone in that mode and then you just take the video. And it's as simple as that, to be honest. What we're looking for is not well produced. What we're looking for is authenticity. And what we're looking for is to see the drive within your video.
Awesome. This was great. Again, I will share the link to make it very easy for your student, if you're a parent listening, or even a teacher or community-based organization, for your students or students to apply. So thank you, Shafat. This was so good because, again, I love Ashoka. I love what you stand for. I love what you do, and personally experienced it. And to have this great challenge, I just wanted to invite you on to talk about it so that students who are doing this, they can go ahead and apply and see what happens. How many? You said you're picking 25. How many students are selected or
Yeah, so
project?
25 projects are selected, and then one representative of the project gets to fly based on our current situation. I don't know, but the funding really depends on where you want it to go. So it could go to your project, it could go to the individual change maker. But yeah.
That's awesome. I have to say this, and I'm hoping my Wi-Fi doesn't go out. I can't be on top of my router any more than I am right now. This is
That's
just kind of
fair.
the COVID craziness, right? But I will say this: often I'm asked, because my students my students whom I work with, and then students with the last name Andrews in my household. So I'll talk about my kids.
Yeah.
But what is it about? Because Sophia is the second oldest of two, and I I love project based learning and experiences because it just those connections make a difference. And just as a parent, I believe in, I tell my kids early, you either want to be a strong community leader or a global leader. So my son was a
Mhm.
strong community leader, and Sophia has just like taken off on a whole nother level globally. But I say this, it's so important. And this is me as a mom talking to other parents listening. Um, it's just so important, really, to allow them to explore their interests,
Mhm.
their passions, their abilities. Of course, I do what I do as a college admissions consultant, but just as a mom, I just want, like to leave the world a better place. I'm not going to be here forever. And to have young folks who are just, they find something, they gravitate towards it, they love it,
Mm.
it grabs their heart, and they bring others along with that same level of excitement and zeal and passion, to
Yeah.
me is what it's about. And on the back end, you get into some great schools and you win a whole lot of scholarship money, which here's why I like this is now, like with my daughter who now just won, my son won big, and now Sophia, she's free to go to school and focus on her education and continuing to advance in the work that she does through her nonprofit. Like the finance part is not even an issue now. It's sort of like, okay, I'm in, and I've like won money through my school and private scholarships, and I can just focus on this and learn and not have to worry about, some of the other things. So I think I just had to say that because I kind of sit at the intersection of the work that I do, and then at
Mhm.
being a mom. And people always ask me, so how is it that your kids, this is really how I raise my kids. Like, for people listening, if they were in my home, this is really how I do it. Even from the oldest, who's 22, to the 9-year-old, she had asked me a question the other day about something, and I said to her, I always say, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know, you figure it out, and you figure it out, and then you come back and you tell me. And she just looked, and it was something simple. I can't remember what it was, but I tell them all the time,
That's
I
all.
don't know. You go figure it out. And once you figured it out, you come back and you let me know.
Yeah.
And if it works, fine. If it doesn't, that's all right too. I just want you to try
Yeah.
something. So I don't know. That's kind of my parenting mode model.
No, and to be honest, I love that so much. You're like, I wish I could just talk to you all day about this. But really, what we need to think about within ourselves individually, but then holistically, is if we're not letting our children and our kids, the young people in our lives, create change and be change makers, then how are they going to compete in the kind of application world, right? So it's
Right.
very directly related to your audience and the people listening. I think for you guys, you have to think about what is going to be the differentiator for the young person in your life to stand out, and very soon. This is not something. One of the things that we've noticed is people think of like repetition and memorization, these skills being depleted in the future. It's not the future. That's the present. If you don't understand that, then I would encourage you to think about that simple fact, like that the world is changing at a pace that is exponential, and if you're not able to adapt to change and rather thrive in that environment, then you're not going to succeed. And you can draw your own definition of succeed, right? There's that whole argument of, oh, success isn't like working at a big corporation, or success isn't being an entrepreneur. Great, but success is being able to adapt. And I think that piece is what we're really trying to work towards as Ashoka, is how do we make sure that everybody has the skill set to thrive in an environment where everything is changing. And you see that in the United States, you see that in developing countries as well. I mean, my experience in Bangladesh is, if I wasn't able to work on things when I was young in high school, I would have never gotten to the University of Virginia. For a kid from Bangladesh to be able to apply, it's a huge feat. And actually, both me and my brother, both of us went to the University of Virginia. We don't come from a lot of wealth. My parents literally spent, my mom, I would say, I would credit her a lot for this. She spent everything she had making sure that both me and my brother are able to go off to college and learn, not only to have a degree, but really figure out like how can you find agency within yourself. And I think that if we had one takeaway for your listeners from this, is let young people have agency. Let
Hmm.
them do what they're asking for. And I think there's a common fear for and trust issues as well of letting young people do some things. But really, it's, I would encourage, and this is a final thing I'll say as a final takeaway for everyone, is have a family meeting. Just get your folks, get everyone in. I mean, you're hopefully everyone is in your home already. Schedule a time, 15 to 30 minutes, and just ask questions about how you're doing, either as a parent or vice versa, how the young person is doing as a child, and have that relationship and conversation so that you're able to work out and be empathetic towards each other, and ultimately figure out the best environment that both of you, as a parent and a child, are able to succeed.
This is good. This is good. Now more than ever, because we're on top of each other. We're all in the
Yeah,
same space,
yeah,
pretty much around the clock. So,
yeah.
yeah, for sure. For sure. So I wanted to ask, thank you so much. And again, I will have the link for the General Motors change make STEM for change making challenge. I will drop that link to make it super easy to click on it, so you can get more information, and hopefully your young person, either by themselves or in it with the team, if they've been working on a project that fits the criteria, go ahead. But my fun question, Shafat, if you could be any mascot, what would you be and why?
I would have to pick the Royal Bengal tiger. It's representative of where I come from. It's representative of who I am as a person. And I think the best part about this is that tigers seem to be in the national conversation today. So I think I would be a fan favorite as well. So, but yeah, I would love to be that if I had the choice.
Oh, well, thank you. This was so great. I so appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate what Ashoka does and the work that you're doing to support young people, young change makers, shakers, doers, leaders. So thank you, Shafat.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me. It's truly a pleasure to meet a mom of an Ashoka young changemaker who is, I mean, for us, that's the core work is how do we understand what parents go through and foster that environment to think about the village instead of one individual person. And we're excited to be able to launch the challenge. Like I mentioned, I think uh, some of the ideas that we've seen so far, it's also a huge learning moment for yourself, right? You look at these ideas and you're like, what? How did you think of that? So, anyone listening in, any parent, any teacher, any college counselor, I would encourage you to share this with any young person in your life who's working on a project that has a solution to environmental issues. And if you're a young person, this is this application is meant for you. This support is meant for you, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any personal questions. We live in an era of digital communication, so I'm sure that you can find me in some platform. So if you really have a question, let me know, and I'm happy to answer.
Awesome. One final question I do have. So will this happen again next year? Is this a multi-year project?
Right. So that's the hope for now, is
Okay.
that we're able to do this annually. We haven't made that commitment just yet because this is our second year and we're still learning. But yes,
Hmm.
we'll have challenges running throughout. I don't whether it's with General Motors or someone else. We'll have to figure that out. But yeah, we're excited to be able to do this. At Ashoka, we have a lot of other programs as well. So I encourage you to go to our website, www.ashoka.org, to learn more about what we're doing and build everyone a changemaker movement, right? Which is all about you taking action and creating solutions for the problems that you see.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shafat.
Of course.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you. And let Sophia know I say hi.
I sure will.
Okay, perfect. Bye.